I went online and I started to do a search. And I said, well, what other towns in the U.S. are shutting down libraries? Guess how many there are? 0 reducing libraries.
In Colorado Springs, the Pikes Peak Library District has voted to close the Rockrimmon Library. But that data doesn't add up. Rockrimmon is one of the most cost-efficient and heavily used libraries in the county, with expenses that are just a fraction of the district's $42 million budget. We're calling on the Pikes Peak Library District to pause, reconsider, and take another year to do a more thorough analysis. In this video, we take a closer look at the numbers behind this decision.
I'm a former executive in a $120 million company. We had more than a dozen facilities over 5 states. We had to shutter several of them down. We had to consolidate. We had to put people out of work. When you do and make decisions like that, you are morally and ethically obligated to study the problem and to actually spend some time and carefully know what you're doing before you make these decisions. After review of this facilities master plan, I really feel like this hasn't been done in this case. If you look at the data, both from PPLD circulation data and from the facilities master plan, all of it shows Rockrimmon is one of the busiest of all the libraries. The facilities master plan has a lot of good info, but it has some critical deficiencies. It ignored standard cost analyses. Normally you would see opportunity costs of ownership versus rental or leasing in cases like this. You would see all kinds of cost analyses. They just wasn't done in this study. They ignored key customer analysis. You've heard it several times today. 20 to 30 students walking down from Eagle View Middle School, just a few hundred yards away, every day. Normal managerial studies just haven't been done. You've heard several times today, too, why is, say, $230,000, $250K year lease considered significant cost savings when you've got a budget of about $42 million? It's just round off error in my experience. So because they didn't do the work, I did it. Rockrimmon is one of the most cost-efficient libraries in the entire system. Rockrimmon Library has a very high circulation. That's the second highest of the 12 community libraries. This is 2022 data. It's even higher than Penrose's, which is a much, much more expensive place. The facilities master plan points out that Rockrimmon Library has the second highest busyness of all the libraries. Second highest. That's a metric that is weighted activities per open hour per square foot. So just think of it as an efficiency metric. Second highest. There's a 10-year deferred maintenance cost by facility that's been put out there. This is out of the master plan. $15 million is what's tagged for the next 10 years for the top 3 facilities. Rockrimmon's is low, relatively low at $260K. Rockrimmon Library by analysis is low cost. One of the standard metrics that you use for libraries, and I did talk to a former library CFO to verify this, is budgeted operational cost per circulated item. So I took the 2022 data, ran the analysis, found out exactly what the entire cost was for each of the locations, and calculated out a cost per circulated item. You can see I've circled it, $2.44 for Rockrimmon per circulated item. Penrose, over double that. A lot of the other libraries, much more. Interestingly, Cheyenne Mountain was only a penny less. And Cheyenne Mountain is on the chopping block, by the way, in this contractor's report as well. So Rockrimmon turns out to be the 4th most cost-efficient of all the libraries by this metric. If you throw in the deferred maintenance, amortize it 10 years straight, comes out even better, comes to the 3rd most cost-efficient. So again, I'm not claiming that this is the right study. I'm not claiming that this is the end-all. What I'm saying is a closer look at cost is needed. The contractor or consultant report says they're closing Rockrimmon primarily due to high lease costs. That's almost insulting. It's so irrelevant, and it's an irrational and an incomplete story. Bottom line, data does not support the conclusions to close. It shows Rockrimmon is one of the most cost-efficient libraries. And to close a library and give the excuse for cost is just not acceptable. We need more data. So please, let's defer this for a year until it can be better studied.
I'm a resident of the Rockrimmon area, as well as a 10-year veteran of the finance and accounting office of a local medium-sized business where I currently serve as the CFO. I want to ask this City Council to please exercise your oversight power of the Pikes Peak Library District Board of Trustees and have them reconsider their decision to close the Rockrimmon Library. I know this council hasn't used that oversight power in this way before, but the Library District Board has never closed libraries before. That is an unprecedented action, and it requires an unprecedented reaction. One of the reasons I think you must question the reasoning behind this decision is that the Pikes Peak Library District Board has often cited last year's flooding as a major concern. The total cost of that mitigation was a mere $17,433. That is little more than a rounding error in an approximately $40 million budget. No wonder the property owner has agreed to cover the cost of another flooding event should there be one. The second reason that the Pikes Peak Library District Board has given publicly for their decision is that, quote, leasing space is not as financially sustainable as owning. Now, I would agree with that for an individual or a family, but not the library district. One of the primary reasons to own property is to build equity. What are they going to do? Flip 21C if the market gets hot? I don't think so. Instead, they end up bearing all of the maintenance and capital costs themselves instead of having a landlord to, at the very least, split such costs with. And the lease on offer for Rockrimmon at the moment is incredibly generous in this regard. You can see one example on the slide here. Over $1 million was allocated to capital outlay for the East Library alone in 2024. $700,000 of that was for a new parking lot. That is the kind of expense that you don't run into in a leased facility. You can also note it was simply $4,000 that was budgeted in capital outlays for Rockrimmon, but somehow closing that branch yields significant savings. This trend is also seen in the 2025 capital outlay budget. In the 2025 budget, there's just under $3 million in capital outlays allocated for the facilities that the Pikes Peak Library District owns, while just $42,200 is allocated for all of the leased facilities combined. That is 1.4% of the total capital outlay budget for all of the Pikes Peak Library District's leased facilities. I'm struggling to see how such facilities are less financially sustainable. This trend is still obvious in the facilities master plan. Over the next 10 years, only 11% of the total deferred maintenance is projected for these leased facilities. This brings me to this term that features prominently there, deferred maintenance. The Pikes Peak Library District Board states that $1.2 million per year over the next 10 years is needed for deferred maintenance. However, when we look at the operating numbers published in the audited financials from recent years, we see significant operating surpluses. In fact, in 3 of the last 4 years, according to the Statement of Revenues, Expenditures, and Changes in Fund Balances of Governmental Funds, there has been an operational surplus that would have covered that $1.2 million number. Now, I don't advocate that every nickel of revenue be spent in each year, but surely some of this maintenance could have been taken care of during the 7 of the last 10 years when these surpluses existed. All of this leads me to ask a few questions. Why isn't the phrase deferred maintenance found in a single published budget or annual financial report for the last 15 years? Why wasn't any of this maintenance handled while large operating surpluses existed in much of the last decade? And finally, why does the board think that closing a branch with such a small maintenance footprint and total operating budget will generate the savings they say they need? We're not even covering 20% of what they say they need. If everything they say they need is 100% correct, closing this library doesn't do the job. The Pikes Peak Library District's board's conclusions simply do not fit their own data.
One of the criteria that the attorney listed off for a removal of a board member is inadequate performance. And if they're provided with $42 million and can't find $250,000 to keep a neighborhood library open when there's this kind of support for it, and even people pledging their own money to help out, and the gentleman who owns the strip mall cutting his rates and doing a 1-year lease, I'd say that's not very good performance.
This shows you where the 10-minute drive is from all the different libraries based on normal traffic conditions. And Rockrimmon is shown with the yellow dot in that red shaded area there in the northwest area. So zooming in on that, this is the same 10-minute drive analysis zoomed in, like I said, and there's significant overlap, as you can see, within the Rockrimmon district on the southern half of the city and to the east. But if you look at that larger, truly red area in the northwest of this location, zooming in, that's what this looks like. So essentially, this is the area of the city that will essentially lose complete library service within a 10-minute drive. This includes 6 public schools in this area that's losing outside of that smaller area of red, which includes 1 middle school and 6 elementary schools.
I worked for the city of Colorado Springs as a planner for 5 years. The community survey was not inclusive of the entire library district. There were 2,000 to 4,000 people that participated in the survey and the outreach meetings. For a population of 740,000 people, this is not a good sample size to understand people's true connection to their library branches. This is 0.005% of the El Paso County population. There was never a mention of closing libraries with these community outreach meetings. The community should be aware of the challenges and threats to their library branches. There was not enough transparency on what was happening with the library.
If Rockrimmon was not sustainable, why was it greatly expanded at least 2 times in recent years? What has changed in recent years? Do you have confidence in your appointees right now? Even if they close the library, they're going to incur expenses. It's going to cost money to move books. Where are those books going to move to? 21C? Well, apparently the top floor of that library, according to the district's own facility study, cannot take the weight of books. They are saying that they have to make special accommodations. There's a rumor going around that it will take $3 million to retrofit that building. They talk about trying to serve the east side better. I've got no problems. We should have good libraries everywhere. But if that's really the issue, why was 21C not placed further east? It's actually west of the East Library. So by very definition, it doesn't make sense.
If the City Council feels that they are unauthorized to have oversight over the PPLD board and their $42 million budget, my question for you is, who can hold them accountable? We have already asked, as you suggested, the PPL board to talk to us, and they refused to reconsider this matter. So we are asking you to investigate according to the power given to you as the appointing authority. The city attorney earlier referenced the need for good cause into removal of PPLD board members. We are standing before you saying there is good cause to look into the actions of the PPLD board. Is misconduct good cause? Is fiscal irresponsibility good cause? Is budget misrepresentation good cause? How do you, the appointing authority, uphold your duty to determine if there is good cause? The PPLD board misled, outright lied to the community, including one of your own council members, regarding the plans and timeline for considering the closure of the Rockrimmon Library. Wouldn't this type of misconduct, lying to the public, be classified as good cause? Over the last 10 years, when there was deferred maintenance piling up, PPLD expanded many library programs and services beyond the traditional scope of a library. Maker spaces, solar cell phone chargers, there's lists. During that same 10-year period, the PPLD budget increased by $10 million. Any board who expands programs and services on an increased budget while deferring maintenance on existing facilities for 10 years is not being fiscally responsible.
We are not asking the Pikes Peak Library District Board to lock in a 10-year commitment, only to sign the 1-year lease currently being offered. This 1 year will allow for further study of the issues and time for a truly sustainable solution for all the neighborhoods the Pikes Peak Library District serves. It is in the best interest of the City of Colorado Springs and all of your constituents to keep the Rockrimmon Library and all of the Pikes Peak Library District branches open. There's other libraries on that list, and when they come for your library in your district, in Cheyenne Mountain and Ruth Holly, you'll know you could have stopped it now. You could have stopped it here.